Hey, everybody on Zoom and YouTube. Just want to welcome everybody in. We'll get started here in probably about 60 seconds or so. Just want to, happy to have everybody here. Steve and Ted, are you guys ready?
Ready to go.
Okay, just want to welcome everybody to the USA Hockey webinar series presented by Pure Hockey and BioSteel. Excited to have Ted Monnich and Steve Thompson on today. Steve is our ADM manager for goaltending, and he's been on the webinar series every Thursday and some Fridays. So really excited to have Steve back. Always great knowledge from the goalie world. And Steve, the show is all yours, but I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box if you're on Zoom. And if you are on YouTube, just put them in the live chat. I'll be monitoring both. And Ted said that he's willing to answer some hard questions if you know, goalie type questions. So throw them over, and looking forward to your guys' chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. Ted, thanks for joining us. We're really excited for this talk today. For those that don't know of Ted, Ted is really known as the world's leading researcher in mental skills for goaltenders, and he's actually currently working on his doctorate, and his dissertation for sports psychology is exactly what the title of today's talk is. It's mental skills training for goalies. And so this is going to be spot on for what we're trying to work with big picture. And Ted's well respected in the hockey and goaltending community with some articles in InGoal Magazine on mental skills for goalies, as well as some articles on NHL.com. So Ted, thank you for sharing some time with us today to help grow our goaltenders' brains.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this a little bit prior to the call today, and really where this all spawned. And for those that have been watching this regularly on Thursdays, we've hinted at it a few times, but we've been hosting a virtual goalie camp for our national team since the COVID has caused us to not be able to have an in-person camp. And what we did at the start of this camp is we asked all of our goalies to talk about what they wanted to take from the camp and what they wanted. And pretty much 100% said, we want video. We want NHL goalies talking to us about how to, correctly deploy our RVH and work on the physical side of the game. And then the next part of the survey was, where do you feel like you're deficient in your game? And again, 100% was mental skills, consistency, confidence. And that was a big realization for us as a group, is how often in our goaltending world do we know that we need to improve our mental skills, but yet what we do to train is go to the gym, eat better, watch some video with our coaches. And so are we really putting the effort and time into what we think we need to do and what we know we need to do? And so since this, we basically restructured that entire virtual goalie camp. And we had Dr. Tiff Jones, who's our sports psychologist for our national team, pretty much take over. And the goalie coaches and the goalie gurus, as you may call them, have taken a back seat to Tiff just to work with our athletes on mental skills. And it has really just opened up everybody's eyes as to what's really important here. And so I know that we've talked about this, but our next vision with USA Hockey Goaltending is we want to be the first country to truly take goaltending mental skills seriously. We're no longer just going to talk about it and say mental skills are important and 95% of the game is mental. We're actually going to start to deploy this and start to educate our coaches and goalies on this. So you're really the first step for us in this, and thank you again for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my work. What you said about those questionnaires fascinates me and really cuts to the heart of employing mental skills training with our goalies. And that is, we want it, but we don't know what it is. That's what they're saying. They can understand doing an RVH. They can understand looking at video. They can understand talking to the goalie coach. But where do I work on mental skills? How do I work on mental skills? How do I know it's working if I'm doing mental skills? If we go into the gym and we're doing physical conditioning, we're doing strength training, we can feel the burn. We can get out of breath. As we get on the ice and do technical development, we can see our skills improve and where we struggle. But with mental skills, we really can't even come up with an image of what's going on. Where is it? What is my mind? What is this thing in my head, my brain? I hope we never see it. But you know, this is so conceptual, and oftentimes we do not receive an indication of the success of our mental skills training until we actually employ it and succeed at it in competition.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because so what I try to do is to create an analogy of mental skills training that the athlete can visualize, can start to grab a hold of in comparing our body to being a machine, our mind to being the computer that runs it, and our brain, pardon me, body is the machine, our brain is the computer that runs the brain, and our mind is the operating system, the software that, and the apps, and all the functionality within our computer. We're all pretty much in tune with computers now. So we can start using that analogy for ourselves. And I'm not the first one to say our computer's like a brain. But so a big part of my job now, along with helping athletes perform at their best, is to bring mental skills training to the athletes and to help them begin, or to normalize the understanding of what this is. This venue right now, this helps that. For me to be able to talk about this to people who are like, I don't even know what it is. You know, it's something about my brain. Well, we can break it down and make it understandable. So the point of my dissertation, my research, the ultimate result of that will be a resource for goalies. It's not going to be an academic article that goes into a peer-reviewed journal and then gets stuck on a shelf, which is what happens with most peer-reviewed articles. And they never make it to the athlete. So in working with my dissertation committee, I'm saying, I want this to be applied. I want this to be applicable. I don't even want to have to be a go-between to translate it to the athlete and say, now do this. I want this to be a resource that the goalie can pick up and go, you know, I'm worrying a lot. I'm having a lot of anxiety. Turn to the chapter on anxiety. Okay, these are the symptoms and this is how it works within us. What's going on? Now, here are some modalities that we can apply to start to gain control of our mind in these situations. So we want, this is what's called a translational document. It's no longer just for the scholars, but this is for the athletes, that they can have a user's manual of their mental skills. So, you know, I've never thought of it this way. Maybe I'm on a crusade.
Yes, you are, and we appreciate you being on it with us. And speaking of crusade and kind of pathways and how we all get to where we are, we talk about this often with our athletes themselves, is that everybody has a different path, and to not always, you know, get caught up in what your goalie partner's path looks like or what your peers look like. Everyone has a different, you know, place to be and time to be there. You have one of the most interesting paths that I've ever read about in regard to how you got to where you are today. Do you mind kind of walking through with the group for all the coaches that are listening in as to, you know, from your days to now where you're at here, like how did you get along this road to being a world's leading mental skills coach in goaltending?
Well, I have a lot of interests, and I will go down these various pathways to follow these interests. same time, we're right on the edge of talking about a very important concept to me that brought me to this point. But essentially, I'll try to get through it fast. Things I've done. I've worked in museums for 35 years as an art restorer. And I like working with my hands. And so that eventually took me to that. Let's just talk about that. In college, I started playing hockey when I was 10 years old in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as soon as they built a rink in my town. And I went on to play in high school in the Philadelphia area. And then my family moved to the Southeast and there wasn't much hockey. I was very good in high school, but that kind of ended my hockey career, and I went to college. I dropped out of college. What I found at the same time I was starting college, what took the place of hockey, I really liked working with my hands, and I started working with metal. I became a blacksmith. It sounds like something very old. That led me to apprentice to an old man in Connecticut who sent me on an internship in the Royal Armories at the Tower of London. And suddenly I'm on the Museum Arms and Armor scope. And I had a few other short jobs after that. And then the Metropolitan Museum called me about a job. This is the NHL of museums calling me. Now, at the same time, I'm watching a documentary on PBS where Bill Moyers is interviewing a man named Joseph Campbell. And Joseph Campbell said, above all else, follow your bliss. And your bliss is that thing that you can do to exhaustion every day, but you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to do it again. Do that, find that passion and do that. And eventually unseen doorways will open for you. Unseen helpers will appear and facilitate your path. Well, here I am just banging around, working at a few museums, and the Metropolitan, the NHL of museums called me. And I was packing my goods to move to New York when I saw that. And it really sent a chill down my spine because he was saying exactly what I had experienced. So let's take it to the next step. Now, again, I stopped playing hockey. And I'm one of these old guys that took 20 years off from hockey and started playing hockey again. And with a passion, as an adult, beer leaguer, but with a passion. And that passion from my youth grabbed a hold of me again. It became all consuming. It was my life. And I decided I didn't want to be one of these old time goalies there stacking the pads, doing kick saves. I want to play. I want to be good. I found a goalie coach in London, Ontario. I called him and said, if I came and spent a week with you, could you make me better? He said, sure. I did that. Turns out he hired me eventually to coach with him, and I eventually became the school's head coach. But I stuck with that. I got a trainer. I just wanted to be as good as I can be. And the local ECHL team called me and said, we need an e-bug. We need an emergency backup. We just saw this happen in great flourish in the NHL, didn't we? Well, this is in my little world. I went and did that. And, living the dream there, warm-ups, sitting on the bench. And I did it and did it and did it and did it. And at that time, we were affiliated with Vancouver Canucks. Vesa Toskala was their starter. He blew a groin, went down, and had to have surgery. I ended up on the bench for a month and had to sign a contract. At the same time, I said to the coach, I've got a... He wanted an evening at home with his wife. He didn't have an assistant coach. He said, sure, do my video. So I did that the rest of the season. Next season rolls around. He said, hey, I want you to do video, but why don't you just come on the ice and be my assistant coach? And suddenly I was an assistant coach in the ECHL. Dave, I saw you come through our barn as I was doing that. And that was, living the dream there, but it kept going. And I coached with the school in London, Ontario, and this brought other opportunities with the team. This was the Columbia Inferno in Columbia, South Carolina. We had a goalie named Todd Ford who trained with GDI. I was very interested in how technical that school was. A coach came from GDI. We hooked up, a guy named Ryan Monnich. I've worked with him ever since for 13 or 14 years. And one thing leads to another, but that passion happened. And eventually I'm consulting with the Carolina Hurricanes. And there it was again. I was living my bliss, my passion. And suddenly doorways started opening. I'm breaking down video for the ECHL team. There's a retired ECHL player there. And he said, do you know what you have? And I said, yeah, I do know what I have. This is not easy, but it came because I lived my bliss. I followed my bliss. And that has guided my life ever since. I had a band. We ended up touring the world. No intention. I never had an intention of being a sports psychologist, finishing a doctoral degree right now. I dropped out of school for that initial internship that led me into the museum world. And now, 10 years ago, I said, you know what? I don't want to be an amateur at this. I want the certification. I want the credentials. I want the education. So I had to go and finish my bachelor's degree, get the master's degree, and now I'm finishing the doctoral degree. And it's my passion that's brought me here. I've done a lot of different things, but I mentioned a music career. Well, I had a band practice one night or one day, went to hockey practice, and my glove's on fire. I'm catching everything. I'm looking at it going, who are you? Okay. And another time it was a reverse. I had a hockey practice, went to band practice, and I'm shredding it like Eddie Van Halen. And I was working with a sports psychologist then, and I said, what's going on here? She said, look up transfer of learning. I did, and came to realize that music, playing the guitar, was actually helping the effectiveness of my gloves. And doing the research, came to understand it. So that ended up on NHL.com. This led me further and further into research ideas.
That's fantastic. And I think a great message for all of our coaches and athletes out there, not necessarily having to take the traditional path to kind of follow your passion, as long as you let bliss drive the truck.
Yeah. I was open to opportunities. And when the first time the Columbia Inferno called and said, hey, will you fill in for us? I didn't say, I don't know if I can. You stick your neck out and say, sure, I'll do my best. And you go out and do it. Usually, if we wait until we're ready for something, it probably won't happen. But the opportunity will come. And we might feel a little uncertain, but we've got to be brave and embrace it, embrace the challenge. And what I say is, what I don't know, I'll figure out after I get there. But be open to opportunities.
Well, speaking of opportunity, we've got a great one today with your presentation for mental skills for our goalies. So if you don't mind sharing your screen, we'll get the presentation rolling, and we'll have
okay,
some great skills training for the young goalies and old goalies alike listening in today.
Great. So many of us have seen this quote. Because the demands on the goalie are mostly mental, it means that for a goalie, the biggest enemy is himself, not a puck, not an opponent, not a quirk of size or style. The stress and anxiety he feels when he plays, the fear of failing, the fear of being embarrassed, the fear of being physically hurt, all symptoms of the position in constant ebb and flow, but never disappearing. The successful goalie understands this, accepts it, and puts them under control. The unsuccessful goalie is distracted by it, his mind in knots, his body quickly follows. Ken Dryden. This guy was winning Stanley Cups when I was a youth player. He's still deeply involved in hockey. He's an icon. He's an archetype in our field. Mitch Korn. I consider this guy the dean of American goalie coaches. He said 99% of an NHL goalie's game is mental. I can believe that. You're not going to get close to the NHL without superb technical skill, without superb conditioning, without good contacts too. But what are you going to trip on in your game? What are you really going to stumble on in your career? The mental side of the game. Let's talk about some real basic things here. Controlling the controllables. What can we truly control in our life? All that we can control is our attitude and our effort. And from those come our behavior and actions. All that we can control are our attitude and our effort. Things outside of our control includes other people's actions, what they might think of us, the coach's impression of us. Can a goalie control getting selected at tryouts? No, because it's the coaches, the scouts that are going to make that decision. But can we influence them? If we can only control our attitudes and our efforts, can we influence what other people think by our attitudes and efforts? Of course. Can we influence other people's actions by our attitudes and efforts? Think about this as a goalie, and I can recall it being in the net, being in a game. The puck handler from the other team is skating across my zone, and I'm tracking him. I've got some good depth on him, and I see him reach a point in the slot when I know this is when he should shoot, but he doesn't. He keeps going. He passed that opportunity. Why? Because I influenced his decision based on my positioning. It might be that I influenced him making a mistake there. And we can certainly influence people's feelings, impressions of us by our attitude and our effort. That's all we can control. It's all we can control. But it's big. It's big. This is a performance pyramid developed by my friend and colleague, Jack Lessick in Cleveland, Ohio. And we start down at the bottom at level 1 in that gray area. And number 1, what is it? Attitude. In fact, what is this all about? Attitude and effort. Number 2, motivation. Are we going to be intrinsically motivated, playing the game because we love it, for the love of the game? Or are we going to be extrinsically motivated, playing for the trophy, playing for the paycheck? We have a little of both, but truly we want to be intrinsically motivated so that we're playing because we love the game. And there's that passion I talked about earlier, where your bliss, you work at something, you work so hard in the gym, on the track, on the ice, you're exhausted in the evening, but you can't wait to get up in the morning and go to team practice. That's living your bliss. That's being intrinsically motivated. That's where we want to get to. Goals and commitments. We all hear about goal setting and we all shake our hands and go, I fill out a form, put it in a drawer, and I never see it again. Well, that's not using it to its full power. Goal setting establishes the roadmap for our career. It suddenly takes the control away from the scouts and the coaches, and it puts it in our pocket. We establish what goals we want to achieve. We determine, what do I need to do to achieve those goals? Long-term goals, mid-range goals, short goals. And suddenly we see and know where we're going. We know what work we need to do to achieve those goals. And in fact, that work might be the short-term goal. Getting better at rebounds. This is what's been killing me. I need to do that so that I can be the starter on my team. That might be my long-range goal. We establish the roadmap of our career. People skills. You know what? Goalies tend to be a little more introverted. And as a sports psychology consultant, I can tell you a lot of goalies suffer from social anxiety. They may not be comfortable in crowds. They worry about what people are saying about them. But people skills are something we have to develop. And for a hockey career, we need to develop that just as much as technical skills. We have to be able to look the coach in the eye when he's talking to us. We have to be able to shake a hand. We have to be able to be gracious to our fans, to our opponents, to our teammates, and cultivate leadership. Who's the goalie that had the C on his jersey in the show? Sure, Luongo. That's leadership. That's people skills. Now, those are just the basic skills, but then we have the preparatory skills. Mental imagery, visualization is another name of it. Another name for that is mental rehearsal. Of course, we do imagery to imagine what I would do in this situation of a game, and we always practice it positively, making the save. We can do it to practice mentally skills that we struggle with, rebound control perhaps, visualizing ourselves always getting our stick across onto that low shot and putting it over the glass, getting the whistle for our team. We can also use it as mental rehearsal, getting ready to go into the office and meet with the coach. Or how we're going to feel and act first day at training camp. These are preparatory skills. Self-talk. You know, seeds of doubt grow into vicious mind weeds. And when we say to ourselves after a goal against, is this going to be one of those games? We're starting to lose control. We look at the other team and say, oh man, they got Sid the Kid. I don't know if I can, you know, I'm worried about that team. It has nothing to do with that team. Your performance has nothing to do with the opposition. If you're on a team, you got onto that team more than likely because of your accomplishment, because of playing your game, tremendously powerful concept. Playing your game. That's what brought you to this point. So if you go out there, regardless of who's at the other end, the first place team or the last place team, you go out and play your game at its best, you are going to have some consistent success. Consistent success. And Steve said earlier, one of the complaints or one of the concerns expressed by goalies at camp is consistent performance. And I can tell you from my research, that is one of the universal concerns, having consistent performance. Coach Teddy, how can I have consistent performance? Okay, let's work on that. But self-talk and how we view ourselves has a big influence on our performance. If we say to ourselves, I don't know if I can play this team, we catch ourselves. We say, you know what? No, I'm just going to play my game regardless who it is. And my game's good. It brought me to this point. So self-talk is important. Those are preparatory skills, performance skills, managing anxieties, managing emotions, concentration. We call that attentional focus, decision-making, mental toughness. This is what my dissertation research is about. But you know what? As a goalie, a lifelong goalie, I know all of these things. I know anxiety and fear. I know those nerves. I know getting pissed off on the ice at my defenseman who planted his feet on the blue line and the forechecker chipped the puck around him, and there I am stuck with a breakaway. I'm so mad at that defenseman that I'm not focused on the puck and I give up the goal. Who failed? The defenseman or me? My job was to stop that puck, but I'm so busy being angry at him, I failed to do my job. I'll tell you right now, I worked with a sports psychologist exactly for that situation. Exactly for that situation. I had to learn to manage my emotions and my arousal level. How pumped up I was, too pumped up, may not be good. Not pumped up enough, too slow. We need to find what's called our zone of optimal functioning, which is unique to everybody. This was identified by a Soviet scientist named Yuri Hanin, working with Olympic athletes, finding that area where you're pumped up enough, but not too much. Goalies ask me about, what should my pre-game routine be, coach? Juggling, bouncing the ball here, playing gutter ball with the guys, meditating, visualizing. You know what I say? Whatever makes you comfortable, because that's going to get you into your zone of optimal functioning. Listen to your music, whatever gets you comfortable, so that when you step on that ice, you're loose, you feel good. And above all else, I want you to laugh. I want you to laugh. Because when we're out on that ice laughing and having a good time playing a game, we perform at our best. The puck just hits us. Get onto YouTube and do a search for Marty Brodeur laughing. You're going to find it. Look at video of Marc-Andre Fleury at a Penguins practice doing cartwheels in the net and still stopping the puck, and everybody's laughing. everybody's having fun. It's a game. Ultimately, it's a game. And when we enjoy it and we're loose and having fun, not squeezing the stick too much, we're having success. Concentration, focus, dealing with distractions. How do we manage that? Mental toughness. I got scored on. Now what do I do? Because you know what? We play a game as goalies which is predicated upon our failure. Our greatest failure is getting scored on. But the game could not exist if we did not get scored on. And we've become so good at doing this with such good goalie coaching that the NHL has been making rules to limit our success, reducing the size of our gear, limiting where we can go on the ice and play the puck, and even thinking about making bigger nets. I don't think that's going to happen. But we're still going to get scored on. So what do we do there? How do we manage that? This is right out of my dissertation. You can see my school's logo at the bottom there. Mental skills, according to Weinberg and Gould, there's the scholarly attribution. Fundamental mental skills include attentional focus, arousal regulation, imagery, confidence building, increasing motivation and commitment. Just what we saw on the pyramid there. So this is what I'm doing in my studies. Really looking at what is going on in the goalie's mind. I've been a goalie. I've got my impressions. I'm a sports psychologist. I work with a lot of people who do, but now we're going to do an evidence-based study, some real science. We're not going to just say, well, football uses this, so we'll apply it. Basketball uses this, so we'll apply it. Lacrosse is like hockey. They use this, so we'll apply it. No, we're going to look at what is going on with goalies. We'll talk about my research later. Mental skills training is analogous to physical conditioning. It's what I said earlier. So we can start to visualize or wrap ourselves around what this is. We think of our body as a machine. We train our bodies to do things that are unnatural. I assure you, the reverse VH is not natural to human existence. In fact, it tends to not be necessarily a healthy thing for a goalie to do. A butterfly slide is not something you're going to do as a kid out on the sidewalk. There's no place for it but in goaltending. Even a simple butterfly save is hard on our knees and hips. But we customize our body to be a high performance machine and do these things that are required of goaltending and do it without thought. Oh, there's something to that, without thought. In fact, we don't think. My job is to get the mind out of the way of the body because we train the body to respond instantly. Remember what I said about catching a puck and looking at my glove and saying, where did that come from? I didn't think to use my glove. My eyes saw the puck coming off the stick and immediately computed the trajectory and velocity of that puck. And it, through my central nervous system, said, make the glove save. There it is. And I did. This is called kinesthetic response. That's the scientific word. A lot of us call it muscle memory. Our body's the machine. Our brain is the computer. I said this earlier. It's the hard drive that runs the machine. And our mind is the operating system, like Windows. And we can add apps and we can customize it. But typically, we're born with our brain in a default mode of self-preservation. Look out, it's a saber-toothed tiger. Look out, it's a woolly mammoth. Run. Who's that caveman talking to my girl? Hit him on the head. But we're not in that primitive state anymore, where we need this constant default mode self-preservation, but it doesn't turn off because it's there to preserve us. So now, if some guy's talking to our girl, we might start getting jealous. We see a threat. The default mode perceives a threat. The coach is looking our direction and he looks stern. We start thinking, doesn't he like me? We're looking for threats. This is our default mode. And part of this is something in the human condition called negative bias, where people are conditioned to pay more attention to a negative possibility than to a positive possibility. How much time have you spent worrying about losing a game versus winning a game? That is because we're concerned about the consequences of the negative action versus the consequences of the positive action. We win the game, I'm happy. We lose the game, I could lose my place on the team. Who knows what? So we're automatically pay attention to the negative stuff. That's negativity bias, and that's part of the default network. So our brain continues to operate in the default mode in order to protect us until we change it. We aren't given the advantage of buttons or manuals to read to change it. Well, actually, I've got the manuals there. That's what's in the scholarly journals. My job is to do that research. That's part of evidence-based practice, is for me to look at the current research. That's part of being a scientist. But ultimately, we have to hack or reprogram the brain to perform at its greatest potential. Just like we have to customize our body to perform at a high level, to do these movements that are not typical of the human condition. So we do this through mental skills training. We have to lay a foundation first. Can't build a house without first laying a good foundation, and it's got to be a solid foundation. You don't build a house on sand. The sand washes away, the house collapses. You don't build complicated, delicate stuff at the bottom because it can't support the rest. So we have to lay a good foundation. And that foundation is self-awareness. It's called mindfulness, but that just really means self-awareness. What is our mind doing? Becoming aware of that. Gaining awareness of what our mind is doing so we can drive this machine. So we can start controlling what's going on, taking control of our mentality, of our mind, of our brain. But we're really going to think about working with our mind, the operating system. We're going to upgrade it with mental skills training. The foundational skill to gain awareness, to lay that foundation, meditation. Meditation. And this is the foundational skill in my philosophy of practice. All of my clients are taught and do meditation. Meditation is just focusing on what we're doing right now in the present. That's all. That's all. Focusing on what we're doing right now in the present. Because you know why? All that exists is this moment right now. That goal against 3 minutes ago is gone. It's done. It doesn't exist. What's going to happen in the next period? It's just a concept. And if we put our mind on either of those, we don't have 100% of our mentality, of our mindset, of our focus on this moment right now, in which nothing else exists but this moment. Meditation teaches us how it conditions our mind to be in the present and to how to manage and deal with the natural thoughts, emotions that arise and occur. And so how we can liken this mental skill, meditation, to physical conditioning. In meditation, we focus on our breathing. And when a thought arises, which they always do, we simply label it thinking and breathe it out. And every time we do that equals 1 rep with a weight. Every time we identify a thought and breathe it out, it conditions our more aware. So we lay that foundation with meditation. Here's a testimonial. If you remember, the first slide I started with had a goalie in it. And it was this goalie, Jeff Jakitis. He's retired now. Dave Caruso played against him. Jeff played most of his career in the ECHL, spent some time in the AHL, did well there, and then spent some time in Europe. I worked with Jeff for 10 years. And I was watching an NHL game. It was actually a Blackhawks game. And they were talking about Scott Darling, who spent some time in the SPHL, went to the NHL. And they were comparing Scott Darling to Jeff Giakaitis. Scott Darling's 6'5", Jeff Giakaitis is 5'9". When this graphic was put up and Pierre was talking about him there on the air, Jeff was on a 19-game winning streak. He went on to win 27 straight wins. His shutout streak was 259 minutes at that time. He was chasing Brian Boucher's record. He used the same stick throughout that shutout streak. It's hanging on my office wall now. And, you know, all I can say is Jeff embraced this work. He was a committed student to mental skills. And this has nothing to do with me. This has everything to do with Jeff. But this is an example. You might say, so what if I do this? How has it helped anyone? This guy says it's helped him. So much so that the book I'm writing, he's the co-author. I identify the challenges and the skills, and Jeff says, this is how I applied it, and it helped me. So I talked about my research. This is a cover page from my dissertation proposal, Mental Skills Training for Goalies. And the purpose of it is to ascertain the mental challenges most faced by goalies, as well as their feelings about mental training, in order to design a goalie-specific mental skills training resource. And I will do a little self-promotion here and tell every goalie coach watching this, every goalie watching this, I want you to take part in my research. And my email is at the end of this, my phone number. Contact me and I will make you a research participant. It's all confidential. All you have to do is fill out what's called a Qualtrics survey. It's an online survey that I'll email to you. You fill it out, hit send, and it comes back to me. And it's folded in to all of this information. And the more participants, the better the data. And this directly influences creating an evidence-based goalie-specific mental skills training resource. I talked about meditation. Well, how do you do it? How do you do it? Come on, here's your invitation. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I lead an online guided sitting meditation session. Now, I'm not going to do it next Tuesday because I'm doing my dissertation proposal, but we'll begin again on Thursday, May 21st. It's free. All you have to do is send me your email so that I can send you the Zoom invitation. But you'll be on there with pro goalies from Europe, my mother, professors, goalies and goalie coaches in North America, and you'll receive instruction, and we do the meditation for 20 minutes. It goes by quickly. Then we have a little chat talking about experiences, and we go from there. But this is one way to start to lay that foundation. Here's an opportunity for you. It's free. This starts to provide that foundational practice. That's me. There's my email address and my phone number. And I invite everyone to feel free to get in touch with me. If you want to chat or ask questions about all this, here I am. Here I am, Steve.
I love it, Ted. That was great. Thank you very much. And please, again, everybody, take advantage of this. Again, we talked about how important mental skills are, but they're only as important as you deploy them yourself. So just like you saw with Jeff, he was successful due to him taking this serious and actually putting the time and effort in, no different than our physical training. So very huge opportunity here. Ted, a couple things that really jumped at me and it was inspiring as a former goalie and kind of wanting me to put the pads back on. You know, the sport of hockey.
Do it.
The sport of hockey is predicated on our failure. The entire game wants us to fail, right? That's what the game's about, is someone trying to score. What a cool concept for current goalies, future goalies. Like, put the pads on. If you love challenges, if you love to be the one that shuts up the crowd, that does the impossible, what a great position.
Steve, you just gave me goosebumps.
You know, that is what this sport is all about. This is what this position is all about. And I hope that, you know, the parents listening that aren't goalie parents yet, buy a pair of goal pads. If you're an athlete but not a goalie yet, jump in the net, try this out, because this is one of those world beater positions that is unlike any other in sport.
unlike any other. That's why we're developing a goalie-specific mental skills training resource. It's unlike any other.
Another thing I found great, you know, we have a lot of young goalies out there that really struggle with getting scored on, right? It's embarrassing, it's tough, it's challenging, it's the opposite of what our goals are when we're in the net. But you know, you had a piece about a goal against is really a hint and a tip for our future success. A great way to conceptualize your failure is just, you know, a little bit of a spotlight on now what I can work on to continue my career in the right direction.
Exactly, exactly. So remember, at the very beginning of our talk, I talked about seeing this PBS program with a guy named Joseph Campbell, who talked about living your bliss. This guy's influenced me a lot. Another thing he said was, where you stumble, there lies your treasure. What does that mean? That means that where you fail might be your greatest opportunity. And for a goalie, typically what we consider to be our greatest failure is to be scored on. How in the hell is that our greatest opportunity? Well, if we pay attention to it and not try to forget it. A lot of times we try to forget those goals against because they hurt. Of course it hurts. Of course it hurts. It hurts emotionally. Okay, acknowledge that. But now looking at why. This is what I tell a goalie when on the ice. You get scored on. You might be embarrassed. You might be angry. Perhaps that embarrassment turns to anger. And you want to say a bad word, shrug your shoulders. You want to bang your stick on the ice or on the crossbar? You can. You can do just one of those, and just one. Just once. We acknowledge that emotional feeling, and we can react to it. Okay, we're human, but you can only do it once. But then don't move. Look around you and say, why did that go in? And we might be able to identify it right there. I gave up a rebound off my pads. It was a good leg save, good pad save, but it kicked the rebound right out into the slot, and they threw it over my shoulder. Bad rebound. Okay. Well, is there another goal that goes in off a rebound? Maybe we're starting to see a tendency here, a weakness. That thing that we stumble over, that is actually our treasure. When we become aware of a weakness through our failure, we don't want to avoid the weakness. In our culture, we're taught to avoid weaknesses. We're taught to avoid failures, but you learn best through failure. So let's embrace it. And coaches, don't get down on your goalies about it. Don't punish them. Encourage them to learn. We've got to turn that mindset around. You screwed up. No, I made a mistake. How can we learn from that? Because we're going to get better so much faster. Don't punish the goalie for making a mistake or even giving up a goal. Giving up the game winner. Yeah, it sucks, but what can we learn from that? What can we take away from this situation now so that it doesn't happen in the next game? So the goalie goes back and he goes to the goalie coach the next practice, and the goalie coach will always say, what are we going to work on today? And the goalies typically say, I don't know. So the goalie has to do a quick assessment. Nothing is really as good as it could be. But if the goalie says instead, I gave up 2 goals off of rebounds in the last game. I want to work on rebounds. Want to work on rebound control. Goalie coach is ecstatic. I've got drills for that. And you work on it and you work on it and you work on it. And you get better at it. You get better at it. And you resolve that weakness. When we eliminate a weakness, we become stronger. And our potential literally grows. It increases. Well, what does that mean about weaknesses? I want to find them all so I can eliminate them and get stronger. But they're not going to reveal themselves without the chaos and challenge of the game. That's what a game is. It's a test. It's an exam.
Another thing you talked about was kind of the leadership of the position and the ability that the goalie does have to kind of affect his team or her team. And it really brought on a cool quote that Dr. Tiff Jones had presented to our national team goalies on camp this week. And she'd said, as the goaltender, you're the thermostat and the thermometer.
Oh yeah.
You can feel the room, you can feel the energy, but you can also change it.
Yeah.
How important it is when you're in your crease to be the thermometer, to be the thermostat, be both, feel that energy, but also have the opportunity to change it when you know you need to. And again, you're the only position that's on the ice the entire time. You're the only position that can really see the game from the bird's eye view. Don't lose sight of that fact and that responsibility that you do have, and then embrace it and run with it.
Sure. The simplest example of this is realizing your team is tired and you need to freeze the puck. You felt the temperature, you're the thermometer. Now you're going to change the game. You're going to freeze the puck and allow your tired teammates to change up. But it's the same way with making a big save. You boost their confidence. A team that has great confidence in their goalie is going to play more aggressively. A coach that has great confidence in his goalies is going to design systems that are more aggressive. They might design the goalie into the transition. Sure.
Steve, just want to kind of touch on that point from Dr. Tiff. I think when you said that, I immediately thought back of when Maddie Rooney was talking about the story about in the shootout in the gold medal game, and on the bench, somebody was asking her, what did they ask her? And what did she say?
Yeah, it was exactly to that point. I don't remember word for word what she mentioned, but, basically the bench could feel the pressure and feel the temperature, as you could say it. And she was cool as a cucumber. She had no fear of that. And through her, just cool, calm, collected, exterior, the rest of the team felt that. And I'm sure that everybody on here that's been in a shootout or has been in a tight situation in a game, even if you're a coach, you can feel that energy from your goalie. And there's times that I've seen goalies, at the higher levels in the college, sometimes I've seen goalies get pulled without even getting scored on just because the coach can feel that energy. They're like, this isn't, that thermometer isn't working the way we want it to right now. So,
and it's like, you got to fake it at times. The situation sometimes is huge. You're playing in front of big crowds, or whether you're playing in Russia or whoever. I think you got to have that mindset of being able to fake it and kind of using that smile and using those skills that you've learned, those behavioral and emotional skills that you can kind of change it. And thinking with what Dr. Lauer said yesterday about, saying one positive thing, something negative happens, you say one positive thing, boom, how can we change it? How can we get back on track? And, I was really impressed when Maddie was talking about that. Like, it was just, she has such a cool, calm, collected approach. And I was like, that was pretty cool, awesome to see. And all those goalies, from our sled goalies to our 1980, all of them, you could tell that's how, when the big moments come, you can tell that that's kind of their performer self and they come out.
Yeah. And even in what you're saying, Dave, even go out there and just kind of fake it, put that smile on, have a good posture. Your brain, in response to that physical posture, to that expression, is going to start releasing some neurotransmitters that reinforce that. So the fake it to make it has some reality. So we're going to fake it, but pretty soon we become it simply through that expression.
I want to get to some questions here. We've got a lot of good ones. And Lee asked a great question about, the age appropriateness of mental skills training and when is too much. And this really, I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I've become a huge Michael Jordan fan over the last 5 weeks. And for those that have been watching this documentary on Sundays, I think it was one of the first 2 episodes that they were talking about his development as, a youth athlete in many different sports. But the one thing that I really found interesting was that there was so much mental skills training going on by his parents. And it certainly wasn't through psychological talk or like a classroom setting, but everyone in that household was mentally tough. Everyone in that household was a born competitor. They loved it. That's all they wanted to do was compete. And then later in the episode, you see that he's playing for the Bulls when they're not a very good team and the management's trying to throw games to get a higher pick. And that wasn't part of his value system. That wasn't part of his culture. And it really made me think about mental skills training. is that parenting? Like, what is that? I believe we're always teaching mental skills. So Ted, if you mind elaborating on that from, your background in schooling.
Sure.
When's it appropriate? When's too much? What's the age appropriate model for mental skills?
Well, all of us, every one of us is an individual. Everyone is different. So that can be different for every goalie. One 10-year-old might have the cognitive maturity, the ability to perceive and understand some of these concepts than perhaps a 12-year-old. But that doesn't mean you exclude the 12-year-old. Yesterday, Larry Lauer said, you for the youngest, you keep it simple, but also you keep it fun. I've got a 10-year-old attending my meditation sessions, a 10-year-old goalie, and he follows along and he does it. And his dad told me later he struggled with his online schooling since the pandemic, and after attending the meditation for a few sessions, he's having far more success. He's managing his anxiety and struggles. And this is a 10-year-old. So he was able to adapt to it. More complex concepts might not be appropriate to a younger goalie. And most of my clients are 12 years old or older, but I don't filter anyone out based on age. I believe that there are skills that can be developed in and helped at every level.
Another good question we have here is from Billy. And we hear all the time about how successful the Finnish goalies are.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a whole lot of different talk about the fact that, they honor that position. People are very well respected in that position. It is the prime real estate of the hockey rink. And unless you're the best skater on the team, you don't get the opportunity or the honor to play in net, which I think is a big part of it. But after hearing your talk today, Billy asks, do you find that maybe the success of the Finnish goalies are due to the independent and calm culture of the Finnish person? And does maybe that culture contribute to a little bit more of the mental skills needed to be successful in this position?
Sure. Yeah, I was given the opportunity for a few summers to coach in Finland, and so I have some understanding there. The Finnish character tends to be more stoic, where they don't react or display emotion as much. This is a generality. And I worked with a Finnish goalie in the NHL, and he was this way, but at the same time, he wanted me to teach him meditation and other skills. That does have an influence, but I think something that we found in talking to and working with Hannu Nyquist, who was the director of the Finnish goaltending program, is what their training program has been and how they formulated it for such a small country and small population. All of these goalies receive the same training, and it's high quality training, and it goes hand in hand with their education, which is high quality, and is different in terms of free time, and even the idea of free play comes into this, where not every moment of the child's day is structured. They have the ability to respond creatively in their own free play. So a lot of elements go together to create the success of Finnish goaltending. It hasn't endured. A few years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 9 years ago, Finnish goaltending was really peaking. It hasn't maintained that level. There are other programs which are just as effective. The Finnish program developed out of the Swedish program. Thomas Magnusson wrote the Swedish manual, and Sweden continues to produce high quality goaltenders. Russia is producing high quality goaltenders. I think it is the degree of training that these young goalies are receiving, and that the mental training is simply an integrated part of that. Does that make sense?
A lot, for sure. We have another good question in regard to structuring of off-ice training for our athletes. And so we've made a really large leap over the last handful of years of integrating off-ice training to our development of athletes. And now the question is, should we be implementing more meditation and more mental skills training in the off-ice, and is that going to hurt our athletes by having that maybe replace a physical exercise hour that we had blocked in that week for our youth hockey athletes?
That's a great question. That's a great question. We want to take mental skills training as seriously as we take off-ice training, but we simply prioritize that into our schedule. We don't displace off-ice training with mental skills training. If the goalie attended these two meditation sessions, two 20-minute meditation sessions a week, or after they wake up, they simply sit and meditate for 15 minutes every day, they're going to become more aware of what's going on with their mentality and then can react. Mental skills training doesn't take a lot of time. You just have to keep doing it. So you're not going to sit for an hour and do mental skills training. No, you're going to, a lot of it is educational. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm an educational psychologist. I teach skills. And it's up to the client to practice these skills. So one of these skills is imagery visualization. If you sit in your stall before a game and you do an imagery session for 2 to 5 minutes, that will help you. But we're not going to displace in time another training modality. It doesn't take that much time. It's simply a matter of learning and applying it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does. I think we have time for probably one. How much time do you think we got? One more, Dave, in us? What do we got?
I think you're close. You're really close.
All right. Well, Ted, this was excellent. I kind of want to close with one of the questions that we got that was a little off topic to this speech, but it was great for overall. I want to make sure we touch on it. So again, everybody out there, you have Ted's information. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question today, please send Ted an email or shoot him a call and ask him. I know that he'd be excited to help. And Ted, as we talked about too, we will gladly share your information with our whole goalie group to try and get as many goalies and as many coaches a part of your research so that we can have the best information possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in the last question here, again, I know we bring this up a lot. This has really become kind of the Bible for myself as far as how we need to treat our youth athletes. And it's this HBO special on Norway and the way that they conduct their youth sport. And, one thing that they've done is that they have eliminated scores. They've eliminated tracking of athletes if they're under 12 years old, and they try and remove pressure. And they've seen so much success in kids not feeling pressure or burnout at the wrong stages of their career. And that really speaks to this question. We had a question here saying, my son is at the mite level and loves to play goalie, but since joining the travel team, he is afraid to let the team down and only wants to play goal in practice, but not in games. As a coach of the team, I do not want to force him, but I'm not sure how to break that fear of letting the team down. And to me, that just speaks volumes as to why Norway eliminates the option for travel team at mites. If you're 8 years old, we've got to make sure that we protect these kids from this pressure. It's the wrong stage of a kid's development to feel that. We want them just to love the game at all else. Once they're 12, 13, 14, then there's going to be some different elements that we need to introduce. But I think we really need to make sure that we protect our kids from some of these pressures. And that's a really kind of bright light on why someone may choose to not play goal because of pressures being put on at the wrong age.
Exactly. I actually have to question a mite travel team, though I understand the fun and the competition. At that age, I think it's supposed to all be about fun. We want to build sport adherence, and we cultivate that at those ages, 8, 9, 10. And we do that through building success, allowing them to have fun, building self-efficacy, their belief in their ability to stop the puck. We don't light them up. We don't show them where their weaknesses are there. We allow them to have success and have fun. And by trying to mediate those pressure for an 8-year-old, we don't want to induce stress at 8 years old. So I lean in the direction of making the game fun. And that happened with USA Hockey, you know, with cross rink games and you know, yes, playing for fun. You know?
And I would say another point to that, you know, at the 8U level, the recommendation is to use quick change equipment and to have multiple kids play in net throughout the game. So for your son that does like goalie, but is afraid of letting the team down, that's another great reason why we want to have 4, 5, 6 different kids play goalie at the 8U level, is because your son probably won't feel as much stress. If he lets in 4 goals, but so do 4 or 5 other kids, he didn't let the team down. Everybody just shared that responsibility. And so again, please get quick change equipment into your rinks at 8U. Please get intermediate nets into your rink at 8U. And then please let everybody get to share the awesome experience of playing in net.
Yeah, at that age, we should be letting everyone have the chance so that they all realize how incredible this position is. That's where we cultivate goalies.
And I think the other point is to have all the parents have their child play goalie, because we have learned from Dr. Popkin and a couple others, that probably is the safest position out of it all per the numbers. So you got to let the others enjoy and play goalie a little bit, so then they can feel, you know, when as they get older, what the goalie parents feels, because that's a tough spot too, you know, for those goalie parents, because, you know, they're watching their kid, just like kind of what Dr. Lauer, they want the best for that kid, you know, for their kid. And, you know, if they get scored on, which they will, you know, how can you deal with it? And just having that awareness, I think that's been.
Yeah, I've joked about starting a goalie mom support group.
We'll have an episode about goalie parents coming up. We're really excited about it. So that's definitely gonna be a topic on one of these Thursdays, is that parent role and, you know, everything that goes into it.
So just closing, Steve, do you want anything that you want to close with?
No, this was great, Ted. Again, thank you. This is the first of many, I hope, as we grow this mental skills foundation for all of our goalies and goalie coaches.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
So thanks for watching, everybody. Ted, thank you very much. Steve, great job again. And tomorrow we have Norm McIver, who is the assistant general manager for the Chicago Blackhawks. He was a great player in his own right, an All-American, and then went on to an NHL career and has a really good development story of many different roles in scouting and the development. Chicago does a very good job of developing in their development system with their development coach, Brian Keene, as well. So anyways, see you tomorrow at 3:30. Thanks again, and have a great night.